Jason Bleeping Spisak is on the show today.
All right. So when we were in Grand Rapids, Jason,
Yes,
my daughter met you, and she about lost her mind meeting you and some of the other members of the cast.
well,
She absolutely
very
loves the
nice.
show Arcane.
It's my
She's a
pleasure.
huge
I mean,
fan.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
only one
Um,
small part of that intensely creative, gifted, talented, genius team that made that show.
yeah.
So
But
I
she
just
likes
do
the
my
part that
small
you
part.
had. So much so, in fact, that she demanded that I watch the show because I wasn't going to watch it because this was at like the height of her anime kick, and I'm not a huge anime guy. I'm like, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's not anime. She's like, I promise you, it's not anime. So I sat down and I
No
watched it
Attack
with
on
her.
Titan for you? No Jujutsu Kaisen? No? Okay. All right.
Nah,
So
I'm not really a big anime fan. I will admit it. I watch a little bit here and there, but not anything with any real gusto.
right.
Um, but yeah, so I watched that, and I was very interested in it. Um, and then I got to see who else, some of the other characters that you have played. I got to see that what you've done in DC, and then of course there's Marvel. Then you're freaking Deadpool in Marvel. So how cool is that?
At times, I
At
think
times,
Deadpool is one of those characters like Hamlet. I think they give it to different people at different times, like the Joker. I mean, I've played him
right?
a few times in a few different ways, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm Joker on Teen Titans Go, which is a very different Joker than
Yes,
Batman
it
Hush
is.
Joker. I think that's one of the beautiful things about being a storyteller. And that's being an actor is being a storyteller is that these stories kind of live forever. They live on, and the characters get reincarnated. I mean, how many times has the Avengers show been rebooted? And like
Right. Yeah.
you get a chance when these things come by, and if you're lucky enough and talented enough and hardworking enough, and everything clicks, you get to play one of them for one of the incarnations, and it is an absolute treat and a pleasure to do so. Um, yeah, I always wanted to play the Joker. I always wanted to
All right.
to
Well,
be in the Marvel universe. Even Green Lantern. I when I grew up,
very
I
cool.
I
Yeah.
liked Green Lantern when I was growing up. I didn't read a ton of comics, but I liked the Green Lantern growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to play both Hal Jordan and Razor in Green Lantern the animated series. So,
I saw that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I played Hal
You
Jordan on DC Superhero Girls.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. You've had some really cool notches on the old resume there. And so let me ask you this, Jason. When
sure,
you sit down and and not to oversimplify what you do, so don't take it
sure.
this way.
Uh,
But when you sit down to take on a character like Deadpool or Joker, somebody who's an
sure,
iconic character but has these quirks to their characters,
sure.
okay?
It's a
How
good thing these guys are wearing their brown pants. Yeah.
exactly? How do you get yourself in a mindset to portray those particular type of characters who have more nuance, say, than some of the others?
Well, I mean, every character that I approach has to have its own unique place in a universe as far as tone goes. Arcane is a very different tone than DC Superhero
Hmm.
Girls. Um, you have a story that you are a part of that you have to honor. And it is much easier for me to think of characters as part of a whole machine, as part of an entire story being told, than it is for me to look at the character individually and then, oh, I got to do something unique. That never really works for me because
Hmm.
you can do something unique, but what if it doesn't fit? What if it doesn't make sense? What if so? I mean, I am a classically trained Shakespearean actor who, has done a lot of, theater, but theater isn't really what taught me how to tell stories. It was script analysis, scene analysis, story analysis, looking at how all the moving parts of a story come together to tell a brilliant tale. And then when you learn your part in that, which is why it's actually literally called a part. Did you get a part as an actor?
Right.
When people say, how did you get this part? Sometimes they call it a role these days, but it was always referred to as a part for long, good part
Hmm.
of theatrical history. is the reason is because you are only part of the story. But
Right,
like
right.
all parts in a machine, no machine runs without all the parts. So it doesn't matter
Very true.
what you're doing, you have to be in the right space. And so since what I do is primarily work with my voice, um, I look at the script, I look at all the text that I'm given. Sometimes in auditions, we only get given, a small amount of sides. Sometimes we'll get a picture, sometimes we won't, sometimes we'll just have a description. And you have to glean from that as much as you can about the person. And oddly enough, I prefer it when I get sides that have other people's dialogue in them, like just pulled out of the story, rather
Okay.
than only my lines. Sometimes, as an audition, they'll just send you just your lines. That happens a lot in video games because when you're recording them, it's just a spreadsheet with your lines in it. They don't
Mhm.
actually have it written out like a story. There's too much. Video games these days are too dense with dialogue for that.
Right.
But I prefer it because sometimes you can learn more about your character from what other people say about you and to you
Sure.
than what you say to other people. Because
Well, that makes sense.
you have to honor what they say. If
Mhm.
they say something like, rolls his eyes at me in a conversation, then I know something about that relationship that I have with that other person. Either they don't fear me or they do and they're trying to make light of it. Is this a parent-child relationship? What is that?
Mhm.
You have to learn how you relate to the other characters in the story as your part. So, um, a big piece of telling the story is learning that, is learning where you fit in with the other characters. Relationship is huge, as it was with Jinx and Silco, right? Their relationship is complex. And because he acts with her like he does not treat her the way he treats anyone else in the
Right.
story. No
Right.
other human on Earth treats Silco and Silco treats them the way that Jinx treats Silco and Silco treats Jinx. They are singular in the way that they relate to each other. So if all I had was Jinx and Silco lines, I could never create Silco because
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not who he is really. It's just who he is with her, right? So you have to, as an actor, and sometimes you don't get all the words. You have to create some of that in your head and hope you're close until they give you the whole script. But once you have the whole script, you have to create something that makes it make sense and honor
Mhm.
it from a realistic human perspective. And even comedy comes from that place because, if you're playing a character who's funny, quote unquote, doing a silly voice isn't where the comedy comes from. It's the relationships to other characters and how your character got the scene wrong and misread the situation and everyone looks at it and laughs. You're not just doing a funny voice. That won't make anyone laugh. You know, it's
Right.
so without story and relationship, you can't do this job. So that is I try to get as much of that as I can. Like step one is to get as much of that information as I can because those are clues. Those are like little things left for
Mhm.
Sherlock Holmes or Enola Holmes all around the place, and you pick up everything you can, and then you try on things. I try on things like you would try on a costume to see, does this fit the character? Do I feel like the character in this? But I do it with sound. So
Okay.
I try on things that I think fit that framework that I've assembled of knowledge, to see if it sits right. And I'll read it through, and then I'll be like, well, yeah, that fit for about half of it. But boy, when I got to the end and the scene did this one thing, it just didn't feel right. So and then I'm relying on instinct and experience at that point, right? To tell me what seems right. Because I've told a lot of stories and I've created a lot of characters, and then at
Mhm.
that point it's just instinct and experience going, oh no, no, that's closer. I feel that's closer to what I want. Oh no, no, that
Right.
feels like it's
Yeah.
too far away. That feels like it's too X or Y, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, and then as you're fine tuning those knobs, I would just say that's where talent and experience comes in, because you have gravel, no gravel, you have high pitch, you have low pitch, you have high pace, you have low pace, you have diction, you have slurred diction, you have accent, you have no accent, you have, and those are all just the technicalities. Those are just palette, brush, colors of paint. That's all
Hmm.
they are. They're nothing else but tools to get you to the picture that you're trying to paint. And so you have to kind of know what that picture is before you can just attack it with color and stroke and different size brushes and all that. So, you know, a lot of people think voiceover is learning to make funny voices or learning to modulate your voice and everything. It really isn't. It's to just become a good actor, become a good storyteller, and yes, you should work on your talent and ability. Of course, you should work on your ability to create unique voices and all that. But someone who can create unique voices but can't act isn't of much use to a
Right.
producer.
Right.
They just
Yeah.
they aren't. I mean, there are mimics, people who mimic other voices, impressionists, things like that.
Right.
But the best ones of those can act. Right. Like if you listen to James Arnold Taylor, you listen to Mick Wingert, and they're doing their, you know, their Luke Skywalker or their Kung Fu Panda or whatever.
Hmm.
They're not just mimicking the actors who originated those voices. They are their own version of that voice. They're super close. But
Right.
man, can they act. They can act a scene and
Hmm.
make it be funny, make it be dramatic. And that's what makes them talented, sought after voice actors.
Yeah, I think it was Jennifer Hale when we had her on. She talked about how it's great if you can do the voices. It's great if you can do voices. But if you can't act past the having a voice or two, you're going to be a one trick pony and you'll get called in for a couple things here and there. But past
Mhm.
that, you're not going to have a career. You're going to be, you're going to be in for a couple spots and done. Because if you can't carry
Interestingly,
it,
interestingly as that sounds, I know plenty of humans, I know of them anyway, who have only really done one voice and done it well, and they've turned it into a career. So I would say there's a caveat there. It it,
okay,
it doesn't. It's highly likely that if you can act and you have the ability to change your voice and do multiple characters, that you will work more and you will be able to do this as a full-time job and turn this into your career. If you are only a one-trick pony, that trick better be darn good. And it
well,
doesn't mean
yeah,
you can't. It doesn't mean you can't succeed doing that one thing. You might get called for a few other things, but no one's really going to know you for that. You're known for this one thing, and away you go. That
but then again, if
some
you're
people
happy
make
with
a
that,
whole career out of that, which is
yeah,
great, and more power to them. I
yeah,
think
absolutely,
I don't want to tell anyone that what their way towards making a career is somehow wrong or is somehow not valid.
sure, sure,
Hey, gosh, if you can get success in this world, especially doing voices, more power to you. I
run with it.
think what is, I'm not going to say ensures longevity, but what tends to influence your longevity in a business like voiceover is your ability to act and tell a story and a variety of them, and that there's no emotional corner that's closed off to you, so that when the story demands it, you're not taking a half hour to get to this place that the director and producer want you to get to, that you have literally 90 seconds to get there, and you get there because they will
Right,
call you back for another job. And that is like a rolling snowball, that more and more people see you able to make a moment happen and be real and do a good job, and then you just get called more and more and more. It doesn't mean you can't have a career just doing one voice. There are
right.
plenty of people who do, and that's okay. There ain't no wrong way to do it. It
No, no.
it just means you're less likely, I think, to work.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to say it,
I mean,
right?
and,
Is that
and
you're
Jennifer Hale's not wrong. She's incredibly gifted and talented and knows what the heck she's talking about. She's right, 100%. That if you get the acting part of your job, of your voice acting, right, in theory,
mhm.
and my buddy JB Blanc is like, don't call it a voice actor. because he gets upset. We're all just actors, not voice actors.
Right.
Um, if you get that part well tuned, you open up a whole world of opportunity to yourself that otherwise would be closed off. And that's where I think maybe job turns into career. I don't know. It might. It's
All right.
different for every human being.
Yeah. All right. So a few minutes ago, you mentioned we were talking about Silco and the relationship between Silco and Jinx. So
Sure.
in some of the reading that I was doing, and even some of the conversations that I've had with my daughter, it's
Yeah,
interesting to me that I've seen that some see Silco as the villain,
of
some
course.
see him as not necessarily the hero, but maybe as the anti-hero, not
Right.
necessarily a villain of the series. So from your perspective, how do you see or perceive the character of Silco? Is
Well,
he the villain or is he more the anti-hero?
well, the answer is both. And any well written story doesn't come down in such a black and white way, right? The reason
Right.
Arcane is good as a piece of literature, if you just read the story and just read the words, is because every character has something about them to champion them, and every character has something about them that is a foible or a fault.
Hmm.
And so do we all as human beings. This is one of the reasons why when you watch Arcane, everybody has somebody that they connect to, and everybody has
Yeah.
somebody they root for, and everybody has
Hmm.
somebody they hate. And it's different for lots of different people because the way the characters are written, each of them has something you're rooting for and pulling for. And then each of them has something about them that they are selfish in a moment, right?
Hmm.
Victor grabs that hex tech and accidentally, wipes out his assistant and is
Right.
feels horrible about it, but in that moment was selfish and striving for something greater than himself and taking off the shackles of the science establishment that tells him he can only do certain things and not do other things, right? And there's
Hmm.
something about the glory of discovery, right? And it's such a mixed moment, and Harry plays it absolutely beautifully, and it's incredible animation. Fortiche animates those moments with complexity, which is why
Yes.
Arcane is such a beautiful work of art, because the
Agreed.
writing is complex. The animation lends itself to that complexity. The performers lend themselves to that complexity. So when you ask about Silco specifically, I would say it depends on which part of the story you sit. If you sit, um, you know, let's say Heimerdinger looks at
Hmm.
Silco and sees him putting shimmer on the streets and causing all these people to be addicted to it and have these issues and maladies, drug addiction, and all of this. You could just see Heimerdinger's judgment of him as that he's a villain. He is going about this the absolute wrong way. And then if you look at someone like Jinx, who in the end ends up changing Silco as a person.
Hmm.
He's different because he has her in his life than he would have been without her. And at the very end, he just says, "Don't cry. You're perfect." And we think of other characters in the story who might have wanted to change her. She was fractured by the time she jumped in Silco's arms. Vi slapped her face and left
Hmm.
her. And she was a broken child by the time she hit Silco's arms. And so Silco raises her to be this person that, again, he's in a war as far as he's concerned. Tactics have to be used that other people look down on. And he genuinely cares for Jinx. He genuinely never would have given you to them, not for anything. And in the end says, "You are perfect just as you are," and accepts Jinx for who they have become. There are so many parents on this planet that won't accept their child for who they are, are always shaming them for who they are.
Hmm.
So he's not the bad guy in that moment. What do you do
Right.
with that? You just acknowledge the complexity of the story and say Silco is both. He is both of those things at once, as are many of the characters in Arcane, which is what makes Christian and Alex's creation brilliant.
I've always said that in order for a villain to be a good villain,
Mm,
there has to be levels of complexity to them. If you have
sure.
somebody that's just coming in and just shooting up the place, and you just because it's it's boring and nobody wants to pay
Right,
attention to that.
right.
But you
But
have
why
to have
does
some,
Captain
yeah,
America become interesting in Winter Soldier?
because he has some complexities to him.
Right?
He's got
Because
some
it's
shade
not
to him.
just a love story and how he didn't miss his chance to be with Peggy. That can sustain you for a little
Right.
bit, but all of a sudden he's on the wrong side of history, or is he on the right side? We all think, that,
Right.
that's what makes that moment good to watch, because Captain America is about as similar an example as I can make for heroes as you made with villains, right? So
Yeah.
like villains need to be complex to be interesting. And I would say the same thing about heroes, which is why people like
Oh, I
Batman,
agree.
right?
I
It,
agree.
it's and it's so I would just say any character that you write, if you're a writer out there or a producer, any character who comes onto the stage, to make them interesting, they have to be both, because we as humans are all
Agree.
both. No one is wholly good. No one is wholly bad. They are presented with difficult decisions every day that they would rather not make, and they know that they made a mistake or whatever. And you know, I think that is one of the most beautiful things about storytelling, when we see ourselves in them, the people
Right.
on the screen or on the stage, rather than saying, "Oh, that person's so much better than me or so much worse than me."
I think the ability to be able to identify with who you see on the screen
Yeah,
is what helps you internalize it, what helps make it important to you, which is turn makes you a fan of whatever that is. There has to be that connection, right? Because if you
right.
don't have that connection, you're not going to keep coming back. Which
Yeah,
is why I think, I'm a massive Star Wars fan. And so for me, I identify very strongly with
yeah,
Han Solo.
right.
So,
I'm pointing at the
and
puzzles on the wall in this room because they're all Star Wars.
but so I identify so strongly with Han Solo, so it helps me, you know, want to see more things with Han Solo, and more
Sure,
character development for him, and there's other
right,
characters I appreciate as well in Star Wars. But
sure,
if somebody's like, "Hey, you want to see this thing with Han Solo in it?" Yes, yes, I do. Let's go watch that thing with Han Solo. And it's
right.
not just because it's Star Wars; it's because I like the character. I like how he's
Yes, of
portrayed.
course.
I like all that
Right,
that kind of stuff.
right, right.
So
Yeah, and that there are so many great piles of mythos that have those character archetypes,
right,
and the more that you find them in situations where they aren't sure what the outcome is going to be, you're not sure how they're going to land, what they're going to choose in this moment, the more fun it is to watch. So,
absolutely,
yeah, yeah, and that does
absolutely,
bring connection from the audience. I mean, I think a lot of people connected with Jinx because of the mental health issues
hmm
and
yeah,
upbringing challenges that they
yeah,
suffered in the story. And
absolutely,
I think that's one of the things that made the character of Silco, um, uh, somebody that the fans enjoyed watching the story of, because of Jinx, right? So there's a lot of people, not a ton of people, I think, connect to Silco directly, as oddly as that sounds, right? Because I mean, how many people are like Silco that have come up to me? Very few. I end up getting more Jinx relationship, people who have a strong connection to who Jinx is as a character, coming up to me and saying that they loved my performance as Silco because they connected with Jinx, rather than people coming up to me and going, I really connected with Silco. As weird as that sounds, and that's just specific to this particular character. A lot of people say they like the performance of Silco, that they find his voice very soothing, that he's their comfort character to listen to, whatever. Like I find a lot of, but I really don't get a ton of people coming up to me and go, I always wanted to be a drug dealing sociopath who ends up being a, a found family with a daughter who has mental health issues. I really connect with that. you know, and
No, but the
and
Jinx
so
angle does make sense, though. It
but
does.
and what I'm saying is every story is different. So when people connect to a character and they're like, I see a bit of me in there, they can connect to another character in the story that they see a bit of either someone in their life or someone they wish was in their life. I've had people say that, that I wish I had a father like Silco. And I think what they mean is not that they wish they had a drug dealing sociopath who went on an absolute killing spree before you entered their life and then at some point decided you were their daughter. Like they don't mean that literally, but what they mean is
Right.
that Silco was also had mental health issues and decided not to judge you for them and decided to
Okay.
just kind of do his ham-handed best to be a father figure in this twisted world that they wish
Right.
they
He's
had
gonna figure
someone
it
like
out.
that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To help you figure it out or at least be there for you and try to give you guidance, even though sometimes it's good, it's bad, it's whatever.
Hmm.
So I think that is one of the beautiful things about Arcane is that the characters' interdependencies and relationships can yield that type of engagement from a person
Yeah,
watching the story.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not just the person you connect with, but then it's the person that they connect with. I don't know. I think that's one of the things that makes Arcane
No, it's
kind
a
of
cool,
unique.
it's a cool, it's a cool web of connection in the storyline. How
Yeah,
all these things are kind of interconnected, and this moving piece over here affects this moving piece over here,
yeah,
and they somehow come and meld into the central pot of the story. So I do think that's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
Um,
It's pretty singular. I've never been a part of something quite that unique. That it just visual style wise, Fortiche
yeah.
did an incredible job. You know, and written story, music. The music in Arcane is just
Hmm.
absolutely part of a story and beautiful and
It's like they checked all the boxes when they were making the show. Okay, this is good. We'll make sure
yeah,
that's good. We're going to make sure that's good. Okay, now
yeah,
we'll put it out. All
yeah.
these
Well,
boxes
I
are
mean,
checked. Now we can move forward.
it would be like there's a checkbox for good, there's a checkbox for great, and there's a checkbox for like world class. And they were like, yeah, we'll have Sting sing this song at the end. Like,
Yeah, right from the outset of the theme music for the show all the way through, everything's
yeah.
great. So, all right.
I'm
So
glad
one of
you
the other
enjoyed
things,
it.
yeah, I
I'm
you know
glad you liked it, Tim. That's what
I
it
was
comes down to.
hesitant to get into it, but I absolutely ended up loving the show towards the end. And like I said, I was hesitant only from the standpoint of I thought it was anime, and I was like, well, anime, okay, fine, I'll watch it with you. And then
Mhm.
we got done with an episode, and she got up to go do something. I'm like, where are you going? We got more Arcane to watch. This is a thing now. We're gonna watch this. Come on, let's go. Make it snappy.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I very much enjoyed it, and I'm very much looking forward, and so is she, looking forward to season 2 if and when that gets ready to come out. So,
Yeah, I think it's
but
it's supposed to be out next year. This year, I thought it was 2024, but they haven't told us exactly when, and we don't have any idea
yeah,
of dates.
understood. No
So
worries there. All right, so Jason, one of the other things I like to talk to people about when I find out that they're in Star Wars, because again, massive Star Wars nerd.
sure.
Um, and one of my all-time favorite shows, honestly, is Star Wars Clone Wars, and I found out that
Cool.
you did the voice of Lux Bonteri,
Right.
the overlooked love of interest of a young Ahsoka Tano. Um,
Ahsoka, you're ruining my plans. This is a holotrace device. It'll lead us straight to Count Dooku. Is that enough of a plan for you? He's like such a, I don't know, a little bit of an arrogant fop in many ways who
oh, I love it.
kind of falls off that pedestal and then helps start the rebels and promptly is not in any show having to do with them ever again. Yay. I
I
I
did think that was
I don't
interesting,
think Dave likes Lux very much. I just got that sense that it's nothing to do with me personally, I hope.
right?
I just don't think he likes the character of Lux very much. Otherwise, there's so many opportunities for Lux to show up.
I
There's
thought
like a
so too, especially
ridiculous
after the
number of opportunities, and he's just not around. So
I thought so too, especially after like all the Death Watch stuff. I thought
yeah,
there was an opportunity for that to kind of launch forward,
yeah,
with him doing something. But
yeah.
yeah. Um,
And
so let
that's
me ask you.
okay. That's
That's
okay. Not all characters need to have their storyline continued. I'm okay with it. I understand.
Right. No, yeah, not everyone needs an 8 episode series to explore their
Right.
livelihood and what they're
But
doing.
Lux does. No, no, no. I don't know.
Actually actually, out of all the we'll say the minor characters of the Clone Wars, to me, Lux was one that had opportunity for a greater storyline
Yeah.
because if you look at it, uh he comes from a separatist family line. He's got all these different things. It's on the opposite side of what Ahsoka's fighting for, and technically these two should be, there's
Well,
opportunity there for
it
story,
is like a Romeo and Juliet-esque
a
thing,
little
right? The
bit, yeah.
Montagues and the Capulets, and you can't be with this person, and multiple reasons why. George said Jedis don't fall in love. That was what Dave said in the beginning, because I was like, "Do these guys, are they in love? Whatever." And I was like, but they're not supposed to. It's not that they can't.
Right.
So we all know how that goes. But yeah,
Anakin.
I
Anakin.
was always I was always a little bit saddened by the fact that we didn't see what that type of romantic love did to Ahsoka's journey as a person. Because I just thought that would
Yeah.
be interesting, you know?
Yeah, because I think that was part of her personality development, was
Mhm.
the things that she was going through with Lux, and how her feelings were developing. Because from on screen, as a viewer, yeah, as you're watching the series, you can definitely see that there was something developing between Lux and Ahsoka,
Right,
something somewhere. And I would have loved to have seen some level of finality to it, whether she decided she did not want to pursue it because she saw what was happening with Anakin and Padme and didn't want to go down that road,
right.
or if or whatever the other eventualities could have been. But
Yeah,
I
I
was I
always felt like Lux wasn't good enough for Ahsoka in so many ways, that was the
Well, you're probably not wrong
insinuation.
there.
Yeah.
You're probably not wrong there.
Just the insinuation from the writing and everything, and from what David mentioned here or there, that I always got the sense that, you know, almost like that decision was easy for Ahsoka in a way, because Lux wasn't good enough for her. And I almost was like, but it just a little bit of extra writing on Lux's part could have
Could have been.
discovered some depth to that character that would have made that decision more
Sure.
difficult for Ahsoka to make. But Lux had a lot of maturing to do. And before he could get to that point, and a lot of loss and a lot of struggle and a lot of that.
Mhm.
So that then that decision that Ahsoka could see in him a growth that would make her kind of turn her head. I always thought that would be kind of fun to witness, but we didn't
Yeah.
get to.
Well, somebody not being good for somebody in the Star Wars universe didn't stop, Anakin and Padme. So that was,
No,
that
yeah. I
that
don't mean
wasn't
good
the
for as much as I mean good enough for. Meaning, like, I always thought that, Padme was pretty incredible as on her own.
yeah.
And Anakin's pretty incredible in his own way, on his own, and in like whatever. I always felt like Ahsoka's like here, and Lux is like, "Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing, lady?" Like, I just,
Yeah, definitely there was definitely growth that Lux would have had to gone through in order to get more on her level,
yes,
for sure. For
and
sure.
I say, like, to me, that happens in real life. Like, you get in a
Mhm.
relationship with somebody, and you're like, uh, they're way out of my league, and then they tell you so, and then that's over. But you go off and maybe you do some growth, and things happen to you, and life or whatever, and then you are now in a place, and then they come back into your life, and they're like, wow, you have really changed,
Mhm.
for the better, and I just didn't see this side of you at all. And the answer is that side wasn't there and couldn't have been there without my journey going the way
Right,
it went.
without
It
this loss, I couldn't have moved
right,
forward
right,
to get
loss or
here. Yeah.
struggle or character,
Yeah.
character development in some way. And I just always thought that would have been neat to see Ahsoka have to make that choice again, and this time it's harder for her. Right? To send him out on the pod, and to send him away, to watch his
Right.
face read into space. It was almost an easy decision to make, because he was so just not quite on Ahsoka's level, and he was trying, but it was obvious.
Yeah,
And
that's a very cool
what happens
observation.
if that has to happen again, and it's not such an easy choice for her? Like, I thought that would have been interesting to see. because she was attracted to him. She did see something inside him, even though it may not have been fully developed. What
How
was
cool
that?
would it be to see him like show up in the live action, and be like, come back and be like, yeah, I made all these changes. Look at me now. That'd be kind of cool. So
It would just be interesting to see, and interesting to see her make that choice again for herself and for her own independence and for her own, because she's been on a journey also, quite one,
right.
you know, and
Would the decision be different now that she's no longer a member of the Jedi Order?
right. And would
You
it be
know?
something that she then regrets? And she's like, well, actually, no, I did now make this decision to be in a romantic relationship, but I've grown beyond that in my own personal, journey. I don't know. I mean, it just there's so many cool little moments and questions there that
Oh,
I
yeah,
thought,
absolutely.
but it would mean it wouldn't be the telling of Lux's story so much as what I'm trying to get to here is that this would be a telling of Ahsoka's story because she hasn't met with that challenge. Again, it was easy for her to decline the romantic inclination towards someone she's attracted to the first time around. What does it say about Ahsoka's journey and person, and what is she learning, and what is happening to her if she's faced with that choice
Hmm.
again, and it's not so easy? Because it is Ahsoka's story that I'm interested in, not Lux's per se in that instance, because I find
Yeah, I get
Ahsoka
you.
deeply fascinating. I love the series Ahsoka, and I
So
find her character fascinating. So
her character is fascinating. It's she's so well written.
yeah.
But one of the things I had always kind of wanted to see more out of when it came to your character of Lux
Mm-hmm.
is that because we always see everything from the Republic side, that's our
Rosas.
point of view.
Right.
That's our point of view. That's our vantage point.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen something a little more from the Separatist side because not
Mm-hmm.
all the Separatists wanted to go to war with the Republic. Not all the
Mm-hmm.
Separatists wanted to be all the things that Count Dooku was, and and the Droid Army was, and
Right.
all these different things. I would have liked to have seen, especially with his mother having been a Separatist, senator and all these different things.
Yeah.
What was that vantage point like, and why
Right.
is he doing the things he's doing? I think that's when I say there's some cool story that could have been built around that character.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. It was that be
Yeah,
For
that's
me,
true.
that would be kind of cool.
Well, it would have
So
showed a side of the separatists that wasn't explored, and
right.
a good vehicle by which to do it, Lux.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
yeah, I
but
agree.
all right.
We're not making
Well,
any
cool.
decisions, but we certainly agree. I know.
There you go. Yeah, I don't get to pull the trigger on any of this, but hey, I'll throw my hat into the what if rings. So
Right.
all right, Jason, we have one final question for you.
Shoot.
And we like to call this our silly question. So, and we
I'm
decided
ready to
to
be
ask,
silly.
all right, we decided to ask this because we think it's a shame that at a certain point of age, people stop asking you this question. So, Jason Spisak, what's
Yes.
your favorite dinosaur?
I love the pterodactyl because if you think about it, so much of what goes on in the age of the dinosaurs took place on the ground or in the
Hmm.
ocean. Who ruled the skies, man? Like the sky is everything to be just descended on and plucked off the ground. You thought your life was going along good. There is power in flight. And so I actually think the pterodactyl is just loved the pterodactyl. I really did.
Very cool. All
And
right.
still do. Because I think how cool is it to be a flying dinosaur? That's awesome.
Solid choice, if you ask me.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jason, thank
That's
you
if
so much for.
there truly was a flying that it did have flight. You know,
We're gonna
technically,
go
we
with
know
that. It
the
did,
answer to that.
just because
We know
it's.
what pterodactyls look like, and we know that they have wings and everything, and theoretically, it's possible for them to fly. We just have no idea. So
We're gonna go with yes, just because it makes them way cooler.
it
So
does. And
it
you see them
increases the cool
walking on the
factor.
ground like this. I just can't see that form of evolution being very useful in any other way. So,
No, it gets very,
I'm going to
you know,
say yes.
yes, go with yes. All right, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners and viewers go to find out more about you, your work, and anything you have upcoming?
Um, well, I mean, I do have the social medias. I don't spend a lot of time on social media these days. I'm trying to um, practice what I think is a good idea for all of my friends and family and society at large is to just withdraw from social media. Like, I don't think it's a beneficial thing. I think YouTube, I have learned so much from helping, videos is like, hey, how do you do this plumbing thing? How do you do this? I've learned a lot from YouTube.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if I count that quite as social media, but everything else I've just kind of withdrawn. I mean, I'm on Instagram, Jason Spisak, my name at Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel that I haven't really posted anything for a long time. I do have my own uh, audiobooks that I have been reading. You can go to lovecraftaudiobooks.com. I just picked some stories and I read a few of those
Cool.
horror stories because people wanted some content out there with my voice, and I don't read audiobooks, and I was like, well, people want me to read audiobooks, I'll just kind of read these stories in the public domain. Yeah, and so that's that's really it. I don't do a ton of social media stuff because, really, do you want to watch me? No, you want to hang out with your friends and you want to do things and have experience life. You don't want to look at Instagram. go
There you
go do
go.
that instead.
Well, just in
Go
case
do
it's a
that.
rainy day and they can't go hang with their friends, we'll put the links down below for your
Sure.
for your social media,
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, that's
and
fine.
they'll be able to find out more there, and
Yeah,
they can check it out.
yeah.
And so, guys, we just want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help us continue to grow. Get amazing guests like Jason here today to have
Subscribe to
these
Tim's
conversations
show.
with.
It's
That's
good
right.
stuff.
Subscribe. Click the button. Do the thing. But yeah, go check out Jason's work. He's got oh man, he's got so many cool links. There's so much that we didn't even like touch on today.
There's a lot of games that came out recently that I'm a part of that are incredible, to go play, and I will always announce
Yeah,
on Instagram if I'm allowed to by the publicity department once a game comes out. I'll put it
fair.
out there that I've been in it, and that I'm what part I play and everything, and so you can definitely go out there and play those games and watch those shows and things, and
Excellent.
Riot did officially let me say that I have recorded lines for season 2, for Arcane. They did
Nice.
allow me to say that sentence. You can say that you have recorded lines for season 2. That is all I can say. So I
I'm
have
good
said
with
so.
that. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So yeah, so go check out Jason and make sure, like I said, make sure you click down below, do the like, subscribe, and hey, send it to like 10 of your friends so that they can do the same. Just a thought. I don't know, whatever. But yeah,
Hey,
that's
Tim,
gonna conclude.
thank you for having me on, and please give your
Thank you.
daughter a great big hug from me.
I will. I will, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, guys, that's gonna wrap us up for the FSF Popcast. Goodbye.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpopcast.com.